Welcome to the deep dive. You've handed us a source stack today that is just incredibly focused.
Mm.
I mean, a truly granular look at a single military incident. But this one moment, the destruction of two T-80 tanks, it really does tell a much bigger story, doesn't it? About logistics, technology.
And about the brutal calculus of this conflict. It absolutely does.
So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Right. We want to move beyond the headline, tanks destroyed, and really get into the tactical lesson here. We're looking at what happened near Pokrovsk, how these two Russian T-80s just got stuck.
And the sources are pretty clear. This wasn't just a successful Ukrainian strike.
Not at all. It was a cascading failure. It started with, well, what seems like poor planning and ended in a logistical disaster that just left these two very valuable assets completely exposed.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We're going to start zoomed way in, right on this one spot on the map, looking at the trenches, the vehicle's direction.
All the small details.
And then we'll connect that moment, that tactical snafu where two tanks get stuck in a ditch,
Yeah.
to the huge strategic push that Russia's making right now.
The push towards Myrad and Pokrovsk. It's the perfect way to see how one small thing on the ground, like an anti-tank trench, can have these massive strategic consequences.
Especially when you add in poor planning and, of course, drones.
Oh, absolutely. The drones change everything once a target stops moving.
All right, let's jump into that tactical snapshot then, because
Right.
the way this whole thing started is almost absurd. It began with what the analysts in your source stack called the turtle tank.
Yes, the turtle tank, and you can see why they called it that. The first T-80, it was trying to cross one of these big Ukrainian anti-tank ditches,
Right.
and it didn't just get stuck. It looks like it sort of slid or half rolled into the trench. Its belly got hung up on the far bank.
So it was beached, basically, like
Yeah.
a turtle flipped on its back.
Exactly. Completely immobilized. A T-80 is an incredibly powerful machine, but if you don't respect the ground clearance, if you hit a steep bank like that, well, it becomes useless in an instant.
And that one mistake, just getting physically stuck on a dirt trench, that created an immediate disaster.
A catastrophic traffic jam. The analysts point out that the first disabled T-80 blocked the only path forward.
So the second tank had nowhere to go.
Nowhere. It got trapped right behind the first one. And what's so fascinating here is that the initial problem wasn't a mine. It wasn't an anti-tank missile.
It was just the terrain.
It was the dirt. They were trapped by the dirt itself.
And then things got even worse because of how the crew reacted. The sources say the crew of that first tank, the turtle tank, they bailed out.
Which is understandable. I mean, you're immobilized in a hot zone, you get out.
But
they left the main hatch wide open.
which is just a critical error.
It's the detail that turns a very bad day into a total catastrophe. A tank's armor is its entire purpose, but an open door just nullifies all of it. The drone footage analysis is ruthless on this point.
And you can see it in the video analysis. The drone strike was surgical because that hatch was open on the first tank.
The drone just flew right inside.
Flew inside and detonated. The tank starts smoking, it's crippled, but it's not totally destroyed yet.
Right, that first explosion probably took out critical systems, maybe caused casualties inside, but modern armor is tough. It often takes more than one hit to guarantee a kill.
And that's where the drone tactics come in.
Yes, the first strike confirms the kill, creates chaos. The second strike finishes the job.
And it did. The follow-up strike sets the whole first T-80 on fire, and the second one, the one stuck behind it.
In the aftermath footage, you can just see it burning heavily, a total loss, just like the first.
It raises a question, though. If the first crew evacuated and left the door open, what was the second crew doing?
That's a great question, and it points to a complete breakdown of discipline or maybe just overwhelming fear. Why didn't they try to recover the first tank, or at least secure their own vehicle before running?
It must have been an almost instant decision to abandon ship.
I think so. The psychological shock of seeing the tank in front of you get stuck and then realizing you're also trapped, you're under observation, you're just waiting for the drone, that pressure is immense.
And that's what turns a simple ditch into a fatal trap.
Exactly. The tanks weren't defeated in a maneuver. They were destroyed because a trench forced them to stop, and a stationary tank is the perfect target for a drone.
Okay, so let's get specific about the location. This brings us to Section 2, locating the failure, because the geography is so important here.
It is.
Your sources pinpoint the spot. These two tanks, they were moving west, trying to cross that anti-tank trench. You see it marked with a yellow line in a lot of the analysis. And they were headed for a little settlement called Razena.
And knowing that context is key to the next part of the analysis. Because whenever you see armor stop dead like this, especially near a defensive line,
You immediately think mine.
you immediately think mines. It's the most logical explanation. Were they funneled into a minefield?
It's what you'd expect.
It is. And the sources looked into that theory very carefully, but they ended up ruling it out.
And why was that?
The reasoning is actually a really important piece of insight. This specific piece of ground, right where they tried to cross, is assessed as being under Russian control already.
So they wouldn't mind their own advance route.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, standard procedure is to clear the path in front of you. So the idea that a surprise uncleared minefield was just sitting there, it seems very unlikely.
So we're left with the most embarrassing conclusion.
We are. The initial problem wasn't an explosion. It was just a failure to navigate the terrain. Either they got physically stuck, or maybe they were hit by a drone while moving, which caused the panic and the crash.
Either way, it highlights just how effective even simple passive defenses can be.
Absolutely. A trench doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to slow the enemy down, force them to make a mistake. And when troops are under pressure to advance quickly, they cut corners.
And cutting corners gets you stuck in a ditch.
And getting stuck gets you destroyed by a drone.
That pressure to advance, that's the perfect transition to Section 3. Let's move from this very specific failure to the bigger strategic picture.
Okay.
Because this loss of 2 tanks, it's really just a tiny data point in this massive grinding push Russia is making toward Myrad.
It's a snapshot of the enormous price being paid for these gains. The sources are very clear on this. Russia's throwing a huge amount of resources in this direction.
With the main focus being on a city you mentioned earlier, Pokrovsk.
Yeah.
And we should probably clarify something from the sources here.
Yes, the name.
Sometimes it's called Pokrovsk, sometimes Pokrovsk.
Right. It's just a slight variation in translation or transcription. But all the analysts agree they're talking about the same critical location. Pokrovsk is a vital junction.
And the sources say Russia is pushing hard towards both Myrad and Pokrovsk. This isn't a minor offensive.
No, this is a major strategic objective. Controlling this area would be a huge operational win for them.
And looking at the current situation on the map, the source assessment is pretty grim for the defenders.
It's very grim. Russia reportedly already controls part of the settlement, and it puts the Ukrainian forces in what the sources call a very tricky position.
And tricky seems to be an understatement. When you look at why, it's a classic logistics trap being set.
Exactly. The Russian forces have managed to establish strong positions on almost all sides of the city. They're trying to create a cauldron.
It's geographic strangulation.
That's the perfect term for it. Because of those flanking positions, the source analysis concludes that Ukrainian forces have very few supply and logistics roads left to get into the city.
So every truck, every rotation, every box of ammunition is now at extreme risk.
Extremely high risk. And that brings us back to our 2 lost T-80s. While taking them out was a tactical win for Ukraine.
The strategic reality is much harsher.
It is. They're fighting this incredibly tough defensive battle, but their supply lines are being slowly choked off.
So every piece of equipment they lose, even to something as simple as getting stuck in the mud, it just adds to that pressure.
It adds up. Replacements are hard to come by anyway, but getting them into a sector that's almost surrounded is exponentially more difficult. It's that constant grinding cost.
Speaking of cost and pressure, that takes us right into our final section. The pressure and the cost. Because the sources add one more layer to this, a high-level political layer. And it helps explain why the troops on the ground are being pushed so hard, why they're taking these risks that lead to tanks getting stuck.
The political timeline, it changes everything. The analysis points to a very public directive from President Putin.
What was the directive?
To capture Pokrovsk and Myrad by the end of this year. It's not just a military goal anymore. It's a political mandate.
And when a hard deadline like that is set from the top, the military calculation changes. It's no longer about, is this the smart way to do it?
It becomes, can we get it done by the deadline at any cost?
And that's the real tension in the source material. The assessment is pretty cold. It says the capture looks likely, given the momentum.
And this is the giant caveat.
Albeit with extremely high losses for Russia.
Extremely high, and this is where you, the listener, have to start weighing these things. What is military success worth when the human cost is that high?
And the analysts don't just leave high losses as an abstract term. They provide some very specific, very grim evidence.
They do. The source material talks about a specific image that was circulating on social media on Twitter.
A photograph from a trench.
A deeply disturbing photograph. It apparently showed, and I'm quoting the analysis here, 29 dead Russians in one trench near Pokrovsk.
29 in one spot.
That one image gives you a sense of the sheer intensity of these assaults. It's not one or two casualties here and there. It's entire units being decimated in these localized fights.
It transforms the entire understanding of the operation.
It does. And this is where the source analysis moves into interpretation, and we should be clear, this is their take on it.
Right.
The analysts connect these massive losses directly to that political deadline. Their interpretation is that these costs are being accepted purely for Putin's ego.
To meet the year-end goal, no matter the price.
That's their conclusion. The human cost on the ground is secondary to the political victory of capturing the target on schedule.
So, to recap our deep dive today,
Yeah.
we saw how a small tactical element, a simple anti-tank trench paired with modern drones, can stop and destroy advanced armor.
A perfect tactical trap.
But that tactical success is happening inside a much larger strategic push, one that seems to be succeeding, but at a horrifying rate of attrition.
The sources really show a conflict where short-term political goals are driving military strategy, maybe overriding that traditional calculus of preserving your forces. And if this high-stakes push does succeed, if they do take Pokrovsk and Myrad,
Then what?
then the question for you to think about is this. What does this willingness to accept extremely high losses tell us about the long-term sustainability of the whole operation? If the doctrine is to meet deadlines by sacrificing manpower, what does that mean for the next objective and the one after that?
Something to consider as we all continue to watch this critical part of the front line. That is the essential question hidden in the details of your source material. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.